You know when you first started your job and you actually took lunch breaks? Real ones, where you left your desk, ate food, and came back? And then one day there was a deadline, so you worked through lunch just once. And then it happened the next week, and the week after that. And now it's been 6 months and you can't remember what an actual lunch break feels like? Welcome. You didn't choose this. The system did. One impossible deadline at a time. And your body is keeping score. If you're someone who works through lunch every single day, who eats at your desk while answering emails, or skips lunch entirely and tells yourself you'll eat later, this one's for you. Because working through your lunch break isn't dedication, it's conditioning. And we need to talk about how a system that knows you need breaks designed a workload that makes taking them impossible. Quick note before we dive in. This isn't about people who eat lunch alone or people who eat the same lunch every day. We've covered those. This is about people who don't take lunch breaks at all, who work straight through. Also, this video is for educational purposes only. If you're experiencing burnout, chronic stress, or health issues related to overwork, please reach out to a qualified mental health or medical professional. This isn't a substitute for professional help. Just some psychology that might help you understand what's happening. All right, let's get into it. Here's what nobody tells you about people who work through their lunch break. They call you dedicated, but you're actually trapped. They say you're hardworking when really you're drowning in an impossible workload. And they think you love your job when you actually can't keep up with the demands without sacrificing every break you're supposed to have. Because here's the thing most people don't understand. You didn't start working through lunch because you wanted to. You started because you had to. And then it became normal. And then it became expected. And now taking an actual break feels impossible. So let's talk about how working through lunch isn't a choice you made. It's a trap that was set long before you arrived. Here's the thing. The workload was designed to overflow. And you're not slow. The system is rigged. Think about the math for a second. A standard workday is 8 hours, but those 8 hours were designed with the assumption that you'd take breaks. A lunch break, a couple of short breaks, maybe some time to think, to breathe, to exist as a human being. But here's what actually happens. Companies assign 8 hours worth of work and expect it completed in 8 hours. Which means if you take your lunch break, you're behind. The math doesn't work. 8 hours of tasks plus 1 hour of breaks equals 9 hours of time needed, but you've got 8, and it was never supposed to work, so what gives? Your lunch every single day. According to research on workplace productivity, the standard 8-hour workday was designed around the assumption of regular breaks for optimal cognitive function. Translation: your brain needs rest to work well. But modern workplaces assign workloads that assume you'll work through those breaks. They didn't accidentally overload your schedule. They designed it this way. Because when you work through lunch, they get an extra hour of productivity without paying for an extra hour of time. Your sacrifice is their efficiency, and they're not going to tell you the workload is impossible. They're going to let you think you're just not fast enough, that if you were better at your job, you could finish in time and take your break. But you can't, because the workload was never designed to fit in the time given. You're not failing. You're running a race where the finish line moves every time you get close. But then there's something else happening, something that makes this worse. You feel guilty for even wanting a break, and that guilt isn't natural. It's programmed. Think about it. When did you start feeling bad about taking lunch? Was it the first time you saw a coworker eating at their desk working through their meal? Or was it when your manager praised someone for dedication because they never took breaks? Or was it when you took a lunch break and came back to 17 new emails and felt like you'd fallen behind? That guilt was taught to you, deliberately. Because a workplace culture that makes breaks feel like laziness gets more unpaid labor out of you. Research on workplace break stigma shows that employees in high-pressure environments often report feeling judged for taking legally mandated breaks. Translation: They've created a culture where taking care of yourself feels like letting the team down. And that's intentional. Because if you feel guilty for taking lunch, you won't take it. And if you don't take it, they get more work out of you without paying more. Your guilt is their profit margin. And here's the messed up part. You know it's wrong. You know you should take a break. But the guilt is so strong that you'd rather skip lunch than feel like the person who's not pulling their weight. And that's not you being weak. That's conditioning working exactly as designed. And here's the insidious part. You look around and see other people working through lunch, so you think it's normal. You think everyone does it. You think this is just what work is. But it's not normal. It's normalized. There's a difference. Normal means healthy, sustainable, expected. Normalized means we all started doing something unhealthy and now we pretend it's fine. Working through lunch isn't normal. It's normalized exploitation. Now here's where it gets dark. Your depletion is their gain. Every hour you work without a break, your cognitive function declines. You make more mistakes. You take longer to solve problems. You miss details. And here's what's wild. The company doesn't pay for those mistakes the same way you do. You pay with your energy, your health, your capacity to think clearly. They pay nothing. Or they pay you to fix your own mistakes on your own time. Research shows that by hour 6 of working without a break, you're operating at half capacity. Translation? You're working twice as long to produce half as much. And they're fine with that, because they're not paying for quality, they're paying for hours, for your presence, for your willingness to keep going. And when you burn out, which you will if you keep this up, they don't pay for that either. They replace you. They hire someone new who hasn't learned yet that the workload is impossible. Someone who will work through lunch for the first few months thinking it's temporary. Thinking if they just push a little harder, they'll catch up. But they won't. Because the system isn't designed for you to catch up. It's designed to extract as much as possible until you break. Your burnout is factored into their business model. They know people can't sustain this. They're counting on you not sustaining it. Because desperation makes you productive, and depletion makes you compliant. You're too tired to push back, too overwhelmed to advocate for yourself, too busy trying to survive to question why survival is necessary in the first place. But let's talk about what happens when you try to break this pattern. Because you've thought about it, you've told yourself you're going to start taking lunch breaks, you're going to set a boundary, you're going to take care of yourself, and then what happens? You try to take a break, and you're immediately behind. The work doesn't stop. The emails don't pause. So you spend your lunch break anxious, or you take 15 minutes and call it lunch. And the guilt is overwhelming. Because you've been conditioned to believe that taking care of yourself is the same as not caring about your work. That break equals lazy. That rest equals failure. And your coworkers aren't helping because they're trapped in the same system. So when you take a break, they notice. The subtle judgment, the raised eyebrows, the comments about nice long lunch. And here's the thing that makes this almost impossible to escape. The system benefits from you staying stuck. Your manager's performance depends on your team's output, which depends on you working through breaks. So when you try to set a boundary, you're fighting a system that needs you to keep sacrificing yourself. And they're not going to fix it. Here's what they don't tell you about working through lunch. Your body keeps score. Yeah, every skipped meal, every ignored hunger signal, every time you pushed through exhaustion because the deadline couldn't wait. It's all being tracked. And one day, the bill comes due. Burnout doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It accumulates quietly. One missed break at a time. One boundary crossed. One just this once that became every single day. You're not being productive. You're being depleted. And depletion doesn't feel like anything until you're empty. Until your hands shake at your desk. Until you can't remember what you did yesterday. Until the thought of one more email makes you want to cry. That's not dedication. That's the price you pay when the system takes more than you have to give. And it will keep taking because you keep giving, and it never says stop. You're not weak for struggling with this. You're human, and humans need breaks. Humans need food. Humans need rest. But you're operating in a system that treats you like a machine, that measures your value by your output, and your output by your hours, that punishes rest and rewards depletion. And here's the truth they don't want you to know. You taking your lunch break doesn't make you less dedicated. It makes you less profitable to exploit. That's why they make it so hard. That's why the guilt is so strong. That's why the workload never fits the time. Because if you realized you deserve a break, you might start asking what else you deserve. Reasonable deadlines, manageable workload, a job that doesn't require you to sacrifice your health to succeed. And they can't have that. And here's the question nobody wants you to ask. What if you just stopped? What if you took your lunch break tomorrow? All of it. Left your desk, ate food, came back. What would actually happen? The work would still be there. The emails would wait. The company wouldn't collapse. But you'd remember what it feels like to be a person instead of a machine. So the next time you're eating at your desk, answering emails while you chew, ask yourself who this benefits. Is it you? Or is it a system that profits from your depletion? You're not choosing to work through lunch. You're choosing between impossible options the system created. Fall behind or skip the break. Get judged or get depleted. And when both options hurt you, that's not a choice. That's a trap. You're not failing at work-life balance. You're succeeding at surviving a system designed to consume you. And survival isn't the same as living. You deserve better than this. But better doesn't come from working harder. It comes from recognizing that the game is rigged. And maybe, just maybe, refusing to play. One more thing before you go. If you're experiencing severe burnout, thoughts of self-harm, or a mental health crisis related to work stress, please reach out to a mental health professional or crisis hotline immediately. Your life is worth more than any job. Your health matters more than any deadline. Now tell me, team, I take my lunch break, or team, what lunch break? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this video made you feel seen, hit subscribe. We're here every week breaking down the psychology of work that nobody talks about. Because understanding why you are the way you are, that's not just interesting, that's powerful.